Hi, everybody. Just when I needed to start. I'm Candid, Frankie's Aaron William Freeland. I guess you can tell I haven't gotten rid of my cold yet. And I talked to David on the phone, and I gave it to him. Talking to him on the phone, I gave it to him. So a couple of days later, he's having trouble with a cold, too. These summer colds are terrible. Anyway, how are you doing, Aaron?
Doing all right, Frank.
Feeling healthy?
All right.
Good. All right.
Got my playoff tickets for the Marlies, so I am set for Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. So we're in a good spot right now.
If that goes to 7.
Well, it'll only be games 3, 4, and 5 in Toronto. So
yeah,
we're set.
Well, that's right. Yeah, so it could go to 5, and you'll get all the games in Toronto.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so what do you think the odds are?
Odds are pretty good. I'll be honest with you. They played the Chicago Wolves 4 times this year and ended up going 2-2 against them, including 1 overtime loss and 1 regulation loss. The Marlies' 2 wins were 5-2 and 4-1, both in regulation time. So I think we're sitting in a good spot right now. Now, the good news is they're Carolina's farm team. And Carolina is currently still in the playoffs, which means that they're not getting reinforced anytime soon.
No,
we hope.
And well, it's a best of 3 now. So, 2 games in, it could, 2 more games in, they could be out. But we'll talk about them in a second. The good news is the Marlies are in. Their young players are getting a chance to show what they can do under high pressure situations. Easton Cowan has had an opportunity to go down there and be a part of this. But before we get to him and the team, that was a little preview of what we'll talk about momentarily. We have an issue here with the Maple Leafs and a coach. Boy, they've run the gamut, Aaron. That's all I can say. They've run the gamut. No stone unturned.
No, they fired Berube in May. Mel Houcher got hired by the Vancouver Canucks. Monday, the Los Angeles Kings hired Peter Laviolette. As for other hires, David Carl doesn't look like he's going to be joining. Bruce Cassidy has infamously been made unavailable by the the Vegas Golden Knights. Mike Van Ryn reportedly interviewed with the Maple Leafs, but he's an internal candidate. He's been with the organization for 3 years, so it's unlikely that they're going to choose him. So according to everybody else out there, there's a few different candidates that are left. There's Jay Woodcroft, former Oilers coach. So there's that. There's Derek Lalonde, who might not be the hottest pick to be the Leafs head coach, but he's certainly qualified to coach.
He the Red Wings? Didn't he coach the Red Wings?
He's actually an internal candidate. Lalonde has been with the Leafs for 1 season and was really good at his job, but yeah, he did originally come from Detroit. He was in charge of the team's penalty kill last year, which was one of the few bright spots, I would say, when it comes to this sort of thing. They're also looking at Joe Pavelski, who's thrown his hat into the ring. Now,
a Martin St. Louis kind of pick.
Yeah, exactly. Pavelski's been coaching the Madison Capitals under-15 AAA team, coaching his son Nate. Now, it would be a bit of a challenge, admittedly, for Pavelski to step in with the Leafs because it's a bit of a step up. But, there is the possibility that he could do a decent job.
But that would be a counterintuitive pick. With Montreal and St. Louis came in, they're a bunch of young players. So the whole bunch of them could learn at the same time. Toronto's more in we got to do it now. In fact, if you listen to the whispers that are going around, there's talk of the Leafs trading the first overall pick. That's to give you the indication of where their heads are at, right? If those rumors are correct.
Now, the other thing is Patrick Roy is another guy that's been on the short list.
He's a win today guy.
Yeah, for sure. Here's the thing. It's interesting as to when he was actually fired, because he was fired with 4 games remaining to make way for Pete DeBoer. He never made the playoffs with the Islanders in his 2 seasons with the team. He was on a great path this past year, exceeding the team's expectations going into 25-26. John Gruden is another interesting person whose name has been floated. At this point, however, he's not currently available for interviews, mainly because he's currently in the midst of a Calder Cup run with the Marlies. So there's that to remember as well. and because of the fact that the Marlies are currently in the finals, it's probably better if the Leafs don't speak to him at this point to, sort of make sure that he can get his job done there. But those are the people that we're currently looking at. It's worth noting that coaches who go on to win the Calder Cup, typically get a chance at coaching at the NHL level. That would be like John Cooper, who did it with the Syracuse Crunch, Jason Bednar, Jeff Blashill, Manny Malhotra, Sheldon Keefe, Ryan Warsofsky, and a few others that I can think of. So while no reports can confirm Gruden to be among the remaining names for the Maple Leafs, it wouldn't be absurd or shocking if he is one of the finalists. But those are the individuals that the Leafs are currently looking at.
Let's look back at the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, they've had Babcock. They've had the guy you mentioned that was head coach with the Marlies, came up. So they've had various levels of coaches, guys with no experience, NHL experience, guys with heavy in NHL experience, former Stanley Cup champions, coaches that haven't coached a Stanley Cup champion, coaches with a bite to them, like Patrick Roy, coaches who are, I guess you could say, player friendly. I don't know. Would you call any of those coaches, I guess, I guess the ex-Marley coach that's now in New Jersey would be a guy that I might call a player-friendly coach, maybe?
I would definitely refer to him. I would definitely refer to Shelton as a player-friendly coach for sure.
Right. So they've tried. My point is they've checked a lot of boxes in the last 10 years, and that goes. The same thing goes for GMs, right? They had Dubas, no experience as a general manager, made him a general manager. They had a guy in Lou Lamoriello who basically is the definition of experience as a general manager. They brought in a guy that was a general manager in another city, and Brad Treliving coming to general manage here. And sometimes I get a little, a Spockian eyebrow, when people suggest they ought to do something different. The Leafs have done what other kind of GM can you get? One with no experience, some with some experience with another Canadian team. Even they've got that, they pull that trigger. I think the only thing they haven't done with coaches are a coach and a GM that can win a cup. That's the only thing lacking in what the Leafs have done as far as bringing in those kinds of people. So to listen to them say that they're plowing new ground, now they're gonna have to pick what they did before. But the key is going to be, and this I think, Aaron, is the most important part: a coach that can coach the players they've got. I don't want to see again where what happened with the previous coach was they said, okay, we got this coach. Maybe we should tailor our team to this coach. I just don't think that's going to work anymore because they don't have the capital to do something like that. Because to do that, you're going to have to give away certain things because you're trying to get somebody and everybody knows who you're trying to get. So they're going to have to, this time, they've got to get a good coach and a good GM. This GM's got to turn out into being somebody that can work with what they've got. Because as a GM, they don't have much capital to work with. As a coach, they don't have much capital to work with, so he's going to have to work with what they've got. So that's the way I see the pick. The pick at the end of the day for me has to be somebody that can be flexible enough and get the best out of the players they have.
No, it's definitely the case where they need to maximize their ability to get returns out of the current roster of players, because they do have $22 million worth of space right now because 4 or 5 guys have come off the cap. But at the same time, they do still need to be aware of the fact that some people are going to need replacement contracts. And that's another issue that you have to be aware of and take care of.
The key to having cap leftovers after you're paying everybody.
Exactly.
Having cap left over when you haven't paid everybody, that's fool's gold, because that money's going to go. It's got to go some way. All right. Well, listen, good luck with the Leafs. There's an article in The Athletic comparing the first overall possible pick in McKenna. I'm leaning towards the Swede. I'm just, for the sake of being open about this. I'm leaning with the Swede. I'm leaning with the
Well,
guy who's got a better overall game. But having said that, this kid McKenna is blowing away at the combine.
No, he certainly did impress. The issue that we're running into here, though, is he a generational superstar like Sidney Crosby, or is he a really, really good but not necessarily great player who just happened to be just the right age at just the right time to absolutely dominate in juniors? One anonymous scout has shared his comparison of McKenna with the Athletic, and the verdict is that he's a lot like Artemi Panarin, meaning he'll get his accolades, but he'll also be on 3 or 4 different teams and never really make noise in the playoffs. Now, Panarin's had a long, successful NHL career with, plenty of points, but he's never actually been one of the top players in the world. He's always been a grinder, one of the guys that consistently provides results, but isn't necessarily flashy along the way and doesn't necessarily make first-line money. And the thinking is here, if McKenna does turn into Panarin, is taking him first overall could still make him a really solid pickup for the Leafs, and they may not have a better choice. Sure, Stenberg is still available, and there's a couple other.
I think Stenberg is a Barkov. You look at Barkov, Stenberg is another Barkov, and we saw how Florida played without Barkov. And this is why I say I'm leaning towards Stenberg, because I'm leaning towards a player whose game is really good. This is a guy who could really be the captain of the Maple Leafs. And with a Swede at the top, he's got a good chance to end up being there. This is a guy who's extremely responsible defensively, and having been responsible so far in his career, he's been able to put points up as well. And he's been a game breaker, and he can cycle the puck. And today's game, Aaron, we're seeing it in the playoffs right now. Along the boards, that's where all the plays start, right?
Yeah. No, and it's definitely low board cycle. That is definitely something that you want. You want to get a player that can actually do that.
Strong guy. He's physically strong.
Yeah.
And
he was very impressive during the World Cup too, during the World Championships.
He's the guy I draft just because. And to be honest with you, putting a Canadian, what happened to Marner, one of the best Canadian players in recent memory, it didn't end well in Toronto for him. The pressure, being a Canadian kid, people raising the expectations. I think the biggest problem Marner had was the expectations raised by his contract and by the fact that he was so talented, and yet that talent didn't translate into a championship. And he took all the heat because he was the only guy in the core four that didn't have a contract. So, a lot of questions about if the core four works, great, we'll keep him. But if it doesn't work, we don't have him signed. So he's the guy that's got to go. I just don't think he got a fair shake in Toronto, and he has some issues that I'm not a big fan of, but heck, looks pretty good right now in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. He's got more goals in this particular playoff run than he ever had with the Maple Leafs. So there's that to consider as well.
Together.
Yeah.
His whole playoff life with the Leafs. But an interest, if you're a Leaf fan, you're hoping now with the goaltender out, we've got Bucci playing goal for
Bussy.
Bussy. I call him Boozy, but that's me. For him playing goal right now, and their number one goaltender, former Leaf, is sitting on the sidelines. If Carolina wins it, Leaf fans can at least say, well, neither of them won it. So for Leaf fans that are bitter, Carolina winning it now might be a good thing for them, where they're eating less crow. But the fact is, it's been a very interesting playoff. We've seen a lot of what we've seen with the Maple Leafs when they were in the playoffs. This playoff and this final has been the definition of how the Leafs played in the playoffs, taking leads and not being able to hold them. Neither of these teams has been able to hold a lead, Aaron.
And here's the other thing. When you look at the goaltenders' performance, all of them have sub 900 save percentages. Absolutely. I know it's not a big thing, but at the same time, you need to look at that,
maybe offenses are just that good, Aaron. Maybe that's just the way the game has gone. And we know from regular season action that, 7-8 goal games aren't that unusual. What's unusual are 2-1 games, 1-0 games, that kind of thing are unusual. So good luck to both those teams. And it's been an interesting playoff to watch. Don't feel that invested in it. Just Vegas and Carolina don't strike me as hockey meccas. I just, I don't know. I just don't get wound up as I would if Edmonton was there or LA was there or New York was there. It would feel a little more attractive to me. That's just my bias being from a big city. Let's go over to the second period. Let's talk about the Blue Jays and their version of a Valenzuela. He has been amazing. This is a kid that was going to come up and just, be a placeholder until injuries went away.
And now, he's in a spot right now where you really do have a tough decision to make between him and Heineman once Alejandro Kirk gets back into the lineup when he finishes his rehab stint in Dunedin and in Buffalo. But yeah, he had a game-winning single in the ninth inning. They managed to score 2 off John Duran to beat the Phillies 3-2 on Tuesday. Duran blew a save opportunity for the first time this season after going 16 for 16 in save opportunities. Sanchez reached on an infield single to start the ninth and was replaced by Miles Straw. Yohander Pinango followed with a single, sending Straw to third. Varsho replaced Pinango on first and stole second before Straw scored the tying run on a wild pitch, with Varsho advancing to third. And then Valenzuela lined the next pitch in the left field to score Varsho. So, just bang, 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 bang. And again, this is something that I've been trying to stress that the Jays need to do is small ball. You're not swinging for the fences. You're getting the ball into play. You're advancing the runner.
Advance the runner.
Yep. And it's been great to see.
Absolutely. Let's go to tennis and let's go to Ajay Aliassime.
So Ajay Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov re-entered for a first round win at the Libima Open. They won 6-3, 7-6 over Czechia's Peter Nusa and Austria's Neil Oberleitner in men's doubles first round action Wednesday at the Libima Open. They had 15 aces and overcame a strong serve. They were accurate on 81% of their first serves and won 79% of those points. They scored the only break of the match in the first set. Nusa and Oberleitner faced point break just one other times, but the Canadians saved all 6 break points they faced. They're going on to play Talon Griekspoor and Botek van de Zandschulp in the quarterfinals. So this is great news for them. Felix rarely plays in doubles events. They last teams together, him and Shapovalov played together at last year's Halle Open, where they reached the semifinals in the grass court tournament there. Now, these guys have a little bit of a history together because they both came up through the junior ranks at roughly the same time. So I'm glad to see that they gelled at least for this. On the flip side, in women's doubles, Bianca Andreescu and Louise Boisson beat Dutch duo Anouk Covermans and Susan Lamont 6-1, 6-4 in their first round match. They broke their opponents 4 times in 10 chances and were absolutely dominant in getting themselves through to the quarterfinals.
Absolutely. Let's talk CFL. The Lions added defensive lineman.
Yeah, so Matt Spatney has been added to their practice roster. Spatney moved north after attending mini camp with the Seattle Seahawks last month. He played at Lehigh. He registered 111 total tackles, 34 tackles for loss, 25 and a half sacks, and 2 fumbles. They also announced that Colby Taylor has been released from the practice roster in order to make room for Spatney.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Alouettes, and they've been doing some signing.
They've signed Quebec offensive lineman Anthony Vandal, American receiver Tariq Owens, and Canadian Kazim Ferdinand, as well as defensive lineman Ty Anderson. Vandal played 35 games for the Argos in 24-25. Owens attended the Alouettes' most recent training camp in Quebec City. He spent 2 seasons with Florida Atlantic University before playing 3 years at Missouri State. Ferdinand was a member of the Owls in 2025 following his career with the Carleton University Ravens. And Anderson was drafted in the 4th round by the Hamilton Ticats last year in the 25 draft. He earned a 2024 Canada West All-Stars honor after playing for the Alberta Golden Bears the year before in 2024. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of these guys fit into their lineup. Certainly, they're looking to bank a little bit to make sure that they've got what it takes to get further in the playoffs this year.
Remember that movie back in there? What was it? The early '80s. Eddie Murphy, Welcome to America.
Yeah,
that ain't what's happening when it comes to FIFA's grand spectacle known as the World Cup. The U.S. is not being very friendly. We're talking players, referees, management, not just the fans are being spurned at the border.
Yeah, there was a referee from Somalia who was voted the CAF conference best referee in 2025. He had a diplomatic passport to Turkey and was detained for 7 hours at his airport of arrival before being sent home. There was one Iraqi team staff member who was denied entry. There were dozens of fans from Morocco who have been denied travel visas despite being ticket holders. You had Iran had a whole bunch of tickets that were just canceled. Hotel reservations were just wiped out and annulled. Japan has had to move accommodations twice now because they've been absolutely horrific and substandard. There was a mass shooting 3 miles from Team England's training facility in Kansas City, Missouri yesterday, where 9 people were wounded. There are 39 countries who are under either a full or partial U.S. travel ban. For 19 of those countries, the State Department has suspended issuing all visas. 4 countries that are on those lists are Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, who are expected to play in the World Cup. Here's the thing. They have been told that they cannot stay overnight in America.
I know that's just so
they have to stay in either Canada or Mexico, fly in the day of, play their game, then fly back out again. They're not permitted to train in the States.
Play the games. Play the games. FIFA should make the games available to Canada, to BMO Field, and of course Edmonton. And have the games there, reschedule them, do whatever they have to do. F the Americans. Their attitude is just totally unsporting. Like nothing says a lack of sportsmanship than what they're doing. And we're not talking safety and security here. We're talking about doing stuff just because they can.
And here's what kills me. Like there's families that have spent thousands of dollars on tickets, on flights, on hotels. There was one Scottish family that dropped, I think, about £7,000 on flight, hotel, and tickets. The wife and 2 children were allowed on the plane. The husband was not. Like, what do you do in a situation like that? Like, what are we even doing here?
Well, this is chaos. Anyone who hasn't figured out yet that the agent of chaos is Agent Orange. Agent Orange is the agent of chaos. That's just the way it is. And if you're not affected by it, you think it's really funny because someone else is being put through hell. But what people are finding is that they're becoming victims of this stuff too, in a way. And that's the truly sad part of this, is that we think, well, anyway, enough about politics. At the end of the day, the games are what matter. But unfortunately, there's a thumb on the scale. Because people, quite frankly, are distracted from what should be the subject matter. Will Canada beat Herzegovina? That's the question. It isn't whether Herzegovina can play or Canada can practice. It should be what happens in that game. And FIFA deserves what's happening to them with the way they genuflected to that orange guy. They're just getting what they deserve. They should have been more forthright. They should have been more forthright with getting guarantees. But enough about that. Let's talk about Canadian teams, and let's start with the Habs. And what's this? McTavish?
Yeah, it's interesting. Oliver Kapanen got a role at the second line center position by default, mainly because they didn't have any other players that could fill in. By the end of the season, he was unfortunately really, really struggling with that. He made way for Jake Evans. With all due respect to Jake Evans, unfortunately, he's not a second line center on a contending team. There was a lot of talk about what the Anaheim Ducks would do with regard to their contract negotiations with Mason McTavish. Some people are actually saying he should end up in Montreal. And that's one of the issues that has sparked some interest in Montreal. Is if you can bring McTavish in, that solves Montreal's center problems. He's an established center. He's not another gamble like a Kirby Dach or an Alex Newhook. God bless them both. But those two should probably stay on their wings where they're going to be most effective. McTavish could definitely improve the Canadian center line, but the price tag might be too hefty for Ken Hughes. We'll have to see what happens on that.
You're totally right. But the thing is, if it's too expensive for Quinn Hughes, it's too expensive because Quinn Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens have a lot of bargaining chips that they can throw at somebody.
Yeah.
They're in an excellent position. Hey, listen, they're dealing from a position of strength. Whatever needs they have a counterbalance of chips that they could send out for those needs. It's going to be, how they use what they have to get what they need. At the end of the day, they've got stuff they can, the Leafs wish they were in the position Montreal was in, where they have all this capital that they can trade to upgrade the team. But, these are the kinds of things, they're generational. The decisions that the GM's going to make this year in Montreal, we're going to see the reverberations of their decisions in the next few years, because once you use up that capital and then you don't have it, and once you start figuring out, these are the guys I've got to go with, the disappointments get a little heavy. They become albatrosses. The Leafs have learned about that. Every franchise has learned about the great players they have that go south, and it changes the prospects of a team. So Montreal's in a real generational situation right now. Good luck to them. Montreal fans, they can feel something happening, and that shift, other than how they ended the playoffs, it was terrible the way they ended the playoffs. They obviously need a little more depth, and they need to win with a little less energy from the top six. And that's the problem every team has, Aaron. The top six has to be augmented by a great bottom six. And we've seen it in the playoffs. The teams that are playing for the Stanley Cup right now, their star players haven't been that effective. It's been the guys behind them that have made a difference. You got a guy leading in goal scoring. He scored more goals. He scored more goals in the playoffs than he did all season. So that gives you an indication of what we're talking about, the kind of, trend you need from your lineup. Okay, so now with the Sens, Stuart Skinner, rumor is if he could be heading in that direction.
Yeah, it's a possibility for the Senators. This news was broken by Kevin Weeks yesterday. As it stands, Skinner's a borderline starter. He had a 23-17-9 record in 2025-26 between the Oilers and the Penguins. He had an .888 save percentage and a .292 goals against average. His career numbers are both better than that, so maybe there's hope for improvement. But with Ullmark and net for them, as well as Levi Merilainen and some of the other guys that they've had tending goal for them, Skinner is actually probably a better choice to back up Ullmark. So we'll see if anything comes out of that later in the summer.
Old animosities don't die, and they follow you around, and Mike Babcock has that issue that he has ticked off a few people. He's ticked off a few people because of what he's done to people that play for him. And there are a lot of players out there who personally had an experience with him that really don't want anything to do with him. Edmonton's dealing with that very topic right now and making a decision whether they'll look the other way, because as they deal with the issues they were aware of, new ones are coming up.
And here's the thing. He has more than 700 wins. He's won a Stanley Cup with Detroit in 2008. He's got 2 Olympic gold medals, a world championship, a world junior title. The results are there. It's how you get to the results that's questionable. As a matter of fact, the Oilers have actually asked the NHLPA to open an investigation into Babcock to try to see if they can get a little more information based on what we know he did to Marner. That's one thing. With what he did to Mike Modano, benched him in his final game, so he only has 1,499 instead of 1,500. the way that he brutalized and verbally and mentally abused Johan Franzen.
The mule.
It's one of those things, man. Like, Franzen pretty much retired from hockey after playing for Babcock in Detroit because he was absolutely shattered as a human being, and that's not somebody I want for my coach. Now,
ironic, he was known as the mule, and
yeah,
it seems like Babcock beat him like a mule.
wow, there you go.
You know
I mean,
what I mean?
Babcock was hired by the Blue Jackets in 2023, and he quit before he actually coached one game for them, just because there was so much outcry over his behavior, including him walking around asking players to see their phones.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Camp. I don't know.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out of what purpose was that. Looking at people's personal pictures.
Yeah,
I don't know. Weird stuff, Aaron. Weird stuff. I'd stay away from him just because of the distraction that he brings. And you know what's going to happen? That distraction is going to get inflamed at key moments in the season. Like when things are going real bad, it's going to be, well, geez, you wouldn't be going through this if you paid attention to this guy's history. Those won't necessarily be the words used, but those are the ones people will be thinking, right? Like, how could you get this guy? He's got all this agenda. Anyway, let's talk about the Flames. And they're thinking, there's talk that they want to draft both Ruck brothers.
Yeah, so there's something, I got to be honest, like picking up Daniel and Henrik Sedin, there is something appealing about picking up family members. Getting Liam Ruck and Marcus Ruck at the same time would be a huge coup for them. Now, they're both forwards, and they're both in the 2026 NHL draft class, and they'd likely both be first-round picks. Here's the sweet spot. Calgary has the number 6 picks, but it's unlikely he should be used on one of the brothers, although if they were very committed to the plan, you never know. But they also have the 30th overall pick, not to mention 4 second-round picks. Like, at this point, I think it would be possible for them to cobble together a few second-rounders as part of a package to move up and potentially pick 3 times in the first round. I don't know how the Jets feel about picking 8th, but if you were to combine the 30th overall pick that Calgary has, along with a couple of the second-rounders, it might be enticing enough for them to do that. And getting them from the WHL's Medicine Hat Tigers and putting them in Calgary would, I think, be kind of neat.
It would.
So that's the way that they can do that.
Well, wait for it, Aaron. Wait for it. You know what they're hoping for, right? Calgary? They're hoping for a little puck ruck.
Yep, just a little bit.
Anyway, there's my pun for today. And this rhymes with puck ruck. The Canucks. They're talking about parting ways with Dale Talon, a long-time management person in the National Hockey League. He's been around the horn. Talk now that he could be parting ways with the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, according to some of the information that's been seen online, Talon's name has been taken off the Canucks team staff page. The Canucks also did confirm to Daily Hive that his contract ends this season and they would be opting not to renew it. He was brought on as a senior advisor and talent scout in 22-23, occupying the role up until the end of this year. He spent time as director of player personnel between 98 and 2003, AGM from 2002 to 2005, general manager from 2005 to 2009, and then a senior advisor with the Blackhawks in 2009-2010. Later on, he moved on to the Florida Panthers, where he was president of hockey ops there and a general manager all the way up to and including 2020. I wish him all the best of luck. I don't know where he's going to end up, but it looks like, at least for now, Dale Talon's time in the NHL has come to an end.
Yep, there always seems to be room for a tall forehead somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Aaron, thanks for doing this, buddy. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. We'll see you again next time. Have a great one, everybody.